Hi, thanks everyone, and thanks to TAG for inviting me here. It's really great to be here and talk to all of the innovative companies in Georgia. So today I'm going to talk about four companies, the four companies that will rule your future, the four companies that may ruin your future, and the four companies that will invade your business, whether your business is TV or movies or publishing or the energy business or telecom or advertising or business IT or telephony, pretty much anything. The four companies that will invade your business, take it over, or at least try to, if you don't pay close attention to their intentions, their capabilities, and their ever more expansive vision of how thoroughly their technology can take over the world. So, not a small thing. So these four companies are Apple, Google, Facebook, and Amazon. And they're going to do the things I describe here. Invade your business, create new revenue streams from their technology, upturn entire industries. They're going to do it with devices like this. Not this device specifically, not the iPad alone, but with computers that are smaller than those of the past, mobile, that have amazing battery life, instant on capabilities, that sort of look and feel different and we all recognize to be different from the desktop PCs of the past. They're far easier to use and maintain, and most importantly, they're devices that we use more often. The iPad, along with the iPhone and with Android phones and tablets, they're the first of a new class of devices that people in the tech industry have taken to calling post-PC machines. Probably everyone in this room has a smartphone or a tablet, but you probably also, at this point, use a desktop machine for most of your work or a laptop. But the belief in Silicon Valley is that one day these devices, the mobile devices, will come, and quickly will come to be the dominant technology of our era. They'll be more powerful and more useful than laptops and desktops, and we'll still use those in a limited fashion, but we'll be using our mobile devices a lot more often and to power many more parts of our lives than we ever used our PCs. So that's the first of the big insights that I hope to convince you of today, that mobile machines are here, they're going to become the dominant technology, and they're going to be everywhere. The second insight is related to the first. It's about what we'll do on those machines. In general, the four companies that I'm talking about want us to do everything on these machines, to do our work, to goof off, to conduct our entire lives on these devices. But the big things that they're pushing now, the gateway drug to these machines, are entertainment and, relatedly, shopping. With the post-PC machines, we'll consume media and we'll consume physical goods. You can see this most clearly in Amazon's Kindle Fire. The company is selling this tablet for $199. By many accounts, this is $10, $15 less than it costs Amazon to make the device. So why sell a tablet at a loss? For Amazon, it's like the old joke. They're okay with losing $10 on a Kindle because they want to make it up on volume. That's kind of what they want to do, though. You buy the Kindle Fire, and you're locked in to Amazon's store. All the media you buy, from books to movies to magazines to music, comes from Amazon. And it's not just media, it's everything else. The Fire comes with a free month of Amazon Prime, which Amazon has discovered as this, it's a subscription service that gives you expedited shipping, and you pay $79 a year for it. But that's kind of a trick. The $79 is not where Amazon makes its money. The $79 is just to give you kind of buy-in into this service. And you feel, after you've paid this device, Amazon notices that people's behaviors change. Their attitudes about shopping change. So you pay $79, and Amazon notices that people, in the first year of their membership to Amazon Prime, their purchases double. The average Amazon shopper before subscribing to Prime, spends about $400 a year on Amazon. After subscribing to Prime, they spend about $900 a year. So the Fire comes with a free 1-month membership to Prime, and they hope that you'll get so addicted to Prime on your Kindle Fire that that'll be sort of the main way that you start interacting with the commercial world. There's one more thing beyond shopping and media to consider with these post-PC devices, and that these 4 companies are counting on, and that's data. All of these devices are intimately connected to individual users. We use them all the time, everywhere. Some people, unfortunately, even in the bathroom. And if you think about it this way, you have a family desktop computer. People may share laptops, but you probably don't have a family Kindle. E-books are tied to a single Amazon account. Only one person can read them at a time. There's been they've offered some lending capabilities, but they're limited. And that pretty much the same goes for apps and on phones. These are personal devices, individual devices, in a way that personal computers never were. And this is important because the more that we use these devices, the more data about our personal lives we're feeding back to the servers in the sky. The tech industry and these 4 companies specifically depend on this data just as much as your laptop depends on its battery. The data is the fuel for everything else they do. Data from these devices will power Google and Facebook's advertising systems. It's a source of new insights about what you'd like to buy next, which Apple and Amazon depend on. Data also powers all kinds of new products, some that are amazing, some that are somewhat unsettling. Google's voice recognition system, for example, the system that it uses on Android phones now and on its Chrome operating system, that's built entirely on user-generated data. So many years ago, earlier last decade, Google offered this free 411 phone system where you could call and a computer would try to guess what you were trying to say and give you information. And you pay 25 cents to the phone company to get that information, and Google was offering it for free. Well, why would they do that? They were recording everyone's voice snippets, and that was the first part of their voice database. They recorded huge troves of people just talking to a machine. They later analyzed and kept analyzing, and then used that to create better voice recognition systems, which they offered on Android and other devices. And then as those devices got better, they got more voice snippets, and now that's sort of the way that their voice recognition system works. It automatically looks at new information coming in from Android phones, gets better and better and better. Their language, their web translation service works the same way. They look at huge troves of documents in different languages, compare them, data mine it, and create a translation system that many people agree is better than anything that existed in the past and sort of existed in the pre-data days. Google's traffic maps work the same way. They monitor location and speed of Android phones, And so this way they can tell you if you're going to hit traffic on the way home, because they can tell how fast people with Android phones were going down that road. Google spell checker works the same way. So in this way, Google and Facebook particularly hope to create all kinds of new products that will engage us more with their services, and then will expose us to more advertising. The other day there was a report. This is sort of the unsettling version instance. There was a report that Google is filing a patent to monitor the background noise of people when you make a phone call on an Android device. Google systems, the phone, will try to figure out where you are based on the background noise and also on other sensors in the device, and then try to serve you ads based on that. So if you are one of those people in the bathroom using your phone, it might serve you an ad appropriate to that, maybe like an etiquette guide, for example. So these three ideas, mobile devices, the consumption of digital and physical goods through those devices, and the analysis of the data about our consumption, these ideas all feed into one another in a continuous, and for these companies, it's a virtuous loop. And these four companies, Amazon, Apple, Facebook, and Google, are the companies, the sort of leading companies on the planet, I argue, that are going to benefit from this trend, this transition to post-PC devices, and are going to kind of exploit this trend to try to get into businesses beyond the technology industry. Over the next few years, we'll see these companies jockey for space in a host of different markets. Some obvious, like just the market for selling and making mobile phones and tablets, a market that Apple leads now, and for mobile apps and social networking, but also in industries that we wouldn't naturally associate with these companies, like the possibility of one of these companies entering the space for mobile payments. Google already has a wallet product that allows you to pay for stuff with your Android phones. There's speculation that Apple will be introducing something like that in the next iPhone. And there are a host of apps that are available, made by third-party companies, that are trying to make these devices the kind of the dominant way that we pay for goods in the physical world. The competition between these four companies will be intense because each of these companies is trying to enter the other's market, which is in some ways a new development in the technology industry. Not long ago, you could sum up each of these companies with sort of a one-sentence description of each of them. Apple made consumer electronics, Google ran a search engine, Amazon was a web store, and Facebook was nothing recently, not very long ago, and then it was a social network. And to this day, you can go to Google's site and look up its mission statement, and you'll find that it says, one of the core principles of Google is it's best to do one thing really, really well, which is preposterous for Google to be saying. Originally they were talking about a search engine, but nowadays Google would also like you to believe that, they do social networking really well, which I think is debatable, and because this is their new Google Plus initiative, that they do web browsing, that they make a web browser that's really fantastic, that they do smartphones really, really well. You could name a list of products. And one of the things that's happened in the year since Larry Page came back to be the CEO of Google is that he has shut down a number of kind of superfluous products. But Google still does, so 2 years ago, they may have done like 4 dozen things, but now they still do like at least 5 big things. They do YouTube, Android, Chrome, and they run a search engine too. So each of these companies is sort of spidering out into various different industries. The other three are no different. Apple is in some ways, its main business is making smartphones and iPads now. It's also a movie company, a music and TV company. It entered the ad business 2 years ago, and it also dabbles in making computers sometimes. It's the most valuable company, and it looks possible that on the stock market, and it looks possible that over the next few years, with the vast numbers of people around the world who still don't own smartphones or tablets, that Apple's opportunities in those markets, even if it doesn't maintain the majority share, the profit margin that they make on their devices indicates that their revenues are increasing at the pace that you normally associate with a startup like Facebook, but they're one of the biggest companies in the world. So how is Apple doing this? There's no secret that they make products that everyone wants, that people are willing to pay for. But its real genius, Apple's real genius over the last 5 years, has been to make products that we think of as luxury goods and offer them at mass market prices. So you notice this most clearly with the iPad, which many people, I think almost universally would say is the best, most polished tablet on the market. Obviously, its sales indicate that. But it's also, crazily, one of the cheapest devices on the market. And not only is it kind of the lowest price device, but at the same prices, when competitors try to match Apple's prices, which many have done, they can only do so by either selling at a loss or at cost. So this is a secret, this is a strength that Tim Cook brought to Apple when he was the chief operating officer. He's now the CEO. And it's something that Apple has perfected in a way that it's hard to see how others can match. Over the next few years, the prices of components that go into these devices will surely fall, and faced with competition from devices like the Kindle Fire, Apple may have to lower its prices. But it seems clear that for the next 5 years at least, Apple's going to be selling goods at prices that many people think of as reasonable, but still make an exceptional profit margin on them. And so, and when competitors try to match that, they'll only be able to do so without making profit. The next company is Facebook. Facebook is just going public, and it's the smallest of these 4 companies. Apple takes about a week to make what Facebook made last year in revenues. This company, but Facebook is going to hit the stock market with a valuation of $100 billion, and that is a great thing for Facebook because they're going to all of their employees and their executives are going to be richly rewarded, kind of amazingly rewarded. And there was a story when they filed for an IPO that the artist who did the graffiti murals in their first office, it's not even in their current office, he got paid in Facebook stock that's now worth between $200 and $500 million. And he's like a graffiti artist. I would have done that for $10 million. But there's kind of a flip side to this huge valuation is that they're going to now, for the first time, have to meet expectations, and it's hard to see how they're going to justify this this valuation. I have spoken to several finance professors who say, if you run the numbers to to justify a $100 billion valuation, in about 10 years' time, Facebook will have to make about $70 billion a year in revenue, which is double the size Google is now. It's going to have to grow 25, 30% each year over the next 10 years. So how will it get there? So it can't get there by just getting more people to use its site, because almost 1 billion people use Facebook. It's running out of people. Probably they can get a few 100 million more people who have access to those kinds of devices that'll be able to use Facebook. They have an initiative to get people in developing countries to use Facebook on feature phones, really low quality phones, phones with low network speeds. But it's still going to be difficult for them to, substantially raise the number of people who use Facebook. So instead, they have two other ways to make money: get you to use the site and the services much more often, and then radically increase the number of ads you see, or increase or sort of ramp up other ways to make money from this very captive audience. So how will they kind of make more money from these people? The first thing is that you'll just see a lot. You'll just see a lot more ads on Facebook. Shortly after they filed for an IPO, they debuted a new advertising system that, first of all, they launched mobile ads. So for many years, you've been able to use Facebook on your iPhone and not see any ads at all. So now you'll see ads on phones, on tablets, and now you're going to see ads in your stream from friends. The way it'll work is that Facebook says you won't be annoyed by this because, say your friend likes Ben and Jerry's, your friend will hit like on there on a Ben and Jerry's ad, which if a friend of mine did that, I don't think he'd be a friend, but your friends are going to expected to kind of hit like on a bunch of brands. The algorithms will determine if you're a likely target for those ads, and will show the ads to you in your stream. The theory is that you won't get turned off to those ads, that they'll be kind of more appealing to you because they'll be recommended to you by your friends. The other thing that Facebook is sort of probably thinking of in terms of generating revenue is all of the data they're collecting. One of the amazing things about Facebook is that they've altered the way in which we interact with all of the people we know, with everyone on the planet, but also all of the companies that we interact with. Facebook has redefined how we share personal information, photos, music, and they've encouraged people to interact with brands off of Facebook through the like button and the share button. So in this way, Facebook has built this huge repository of kind of human desire. They know what we like, they know what we don't like, they know where we're going on the web. And there are two expectations. One, that Facebook will relatively soon use some of this information to roll out an advertising network that runs ads beyond Facebook.com. So many of the ads you see on the web today are run by huge ad networks. One of the largest is Google's. Google runs ads on its search page, but it also runs ads. If you go to any big site, you'll see ads from Google's various ad networks on those pages, and they're served up based on what Google has tracked about you through your search behavior, through your other usages of their products, and the context of the page you're on. So if you're on a page that is about home improvement, you'll see a Google ad served up to about a home improvement store. Facebook is almost certainly going to start going to roll out an advertising network, a similar advertising network, but its network will sort of arguably be even better than Google's because it's going to be tracking people. It's going to have kind of individual data about you and about what you like, so it can combine the data about the page that you're visiting with the data, with the stuff that it knows about you from your interactions with your friends and with brands online. Google is justifiably really worried about this. I mean, the advertising market, the global advertising market, is growing at 4% a year. Google and Facebook are trying to grow at 25, 30% a year. So if you have these two advertising giants that are trying to grow really quickly in an overall market that's not growing very fast, the only way that they can really achieve, each of them can really achieve this growth, and that Facebook can achieve the growth of it, that its valuation suggests, is by stealing share, advertising share from all the other players in the industry, most notably Google. So Google's way to combat the rise of Facebook, the most obvious thing they've done recently is launched Google+, which many tech pundits and the numbers would suggest hasn't gone extremely well. Tens, or by some speculation, hundreds of millions of people have signed up for Google+, but it doesn't seem that many people are actually using it. Google hasn't released the number of, hasn't given us any information about the number of daily active users on Google+, or how much time people spend on it. Independent traffic monitoring firms say that people spend, just a few minutes a month on Google+, which is starkly different from how often people go to Facebook. But the interesting thing about Google+ is that Google may not need us to actively use Google+ for its social networking effort to be profitable and important for the future of the company. They see Google+ as not kind of a destination, but more as a repository for stuff that you'll do, for social stuff that you'll do across the web. So they want you to sign up for Google+, and then you have a profile, and then they're going to connect to you. They have your identity that they will connect to everything else you do on their services. So we sort of can glean that this is their intention by the fact that they recently changed their privacy policy to unify all of their products. So now their privacy policy allows them to, for example, you might watch a YouTube video, you might search for a YouTube video about Bob Dylan, and then or you might search for a YouTube video about, let's not choose Bob Dylan, let's choose something that you might want to buy, like a car, and then later on the Google search engine, in Gmail, in any of their various other products, you'll see ads based on your YouTube searches, based on your Google searches. This allows them to create a network that kind of spans all of their products. And if you look at all of their products, if you look at Gmail, YouTube, in sort of the aggregate, their network is arguably as powerful as Facebook's. So that's their sort of grand strategy to blunt the rise of Facebook. It's questionable its success is sort of questionable. We don't know whether people trust Google in the same way that they trust Facebook with the kinds of information that they're sort of sharing on the web. People, I think, when asked on surveys, they say they are suspicious of both companies, but in their behavior, people are very free to share information on Facebook, and they may not be as free to share information on Google's products. So finally, there's Amazon, and Amazon is, in some ways, the most puzzling company of the four, because it's hard to determine what Amazon's purpose is. It started out selling stuff, and it still makes most of its money by selling physical products. But Jeff Bezos is prone to doing sometimes crazy things that you don't immediately, whose sort of genius many people don't immediately recognize. Several years ago, before you would expect a company like Google, which has massive technical infrastructure, to start something like a cloud data service. But Amazon has been the most successful company to build and lease out its servers, its processors, and various other technical products to startups. Many of the most popular startups in the world these days, Tumblr and Instagram, all use Amazon's backend to serve their products. The other product that people thought was crazy at first was a $400 e-reader that they released many years ago. And people, the first time people saw the Kindle, people thought it was ugly, and no one would ever buy that high-priced of a device to read books. Steve Jobs was quoted as saying that, people would, that reading is over. It seemed puzzling that Amazon was doing this. But it has succeeded. And one of the ways that Amazon succeeds is just by sticking with things far longer than you'd expect, and by constantly tweaking the ways that it kind of markets its products. The Kindle, one of the sort of amazing things that Bezos has done with the Kindle is just never, he's never allowed being undersold. So every time that a competing product came out that was offered for $10 less, $5 less, the Nook, when it came out, started selling at $259, I think, and immediately Amazon lowered its price. And they've constantly released lower and lower priced versions of the Kindle. You can get the Kindle now for $79. It's cheap enough that, like, you could argue that it's kind of almost near a disposable device, and that's what they want you to think of it as. This is a device that you're not paying for. This is a device that at some point they're probably going to give out for free, the e-ink version, in exchange for something like buying Prime membership, which is where they make most of their money. And they also have this much huger initiative, Amazon does, to go after the entire retail world. Not long ago, they launched this pretty brazen product. This was in the holiday shopping season last year, mobile price check system that encouraged people to go to their competitors' retail stores and price check a product. And then Amazon will give you a $5 discount if you bought the product from Amazon on your phone in the store. Which many people in the retail world just cried foul. This seemed like unfair competition. But I think it suggests the kind of ambitions they have in mind. I mean, they're looking to increase the number of people who just sort of think about, when you think about shopping, you think about going online first, and you think about going to Amazon first specifically, rather than even going to Google to look for something. Amazon will be your primary commercial entrance on the web. I think the other interesting thing about Jeff Bezos is that he seems the most, if you were to pick kind of if you were to look at the leaders of these four companies, Larry Page at Google, Mark Zuckerberg, and Tim Cook at Apple, and Jeff Bezos at Amazon, Jeff Bezos seems, I think you would have to pick him as the most likely next Steve Jobs. And I don't mean that he's miraculously innovative, but he's willing to, he seems to have the temperament and the just sort of brazenness to come at industries in completely different ways. We saw this with the Kindle Fire, where many, like a string of competitors had released devices where they tried to compete on more features. They tried to make the argument that the iPad was lacking in a USB port, it didn't run Flash, all of these things that it turned out people didn't want, and weren't going to pay $100 more for, or $200 more for. Jeff Bezos looked at the problem and decided that the thing that people really wanted was really, really cheap computing. And the thing that Bezos can do is subsidize really cheap computing with shopping. And so it seemed a natural end for him. At an investors meeting not long ago, Bezos said of Amazon's vision of itself, he said, "We are willing to think long term. We start with the companies and work backward. And very importantly, we are willing to be misunderstood for long periods of time." And I think that's kind of one of the keys to his vision of innovation, and in some ways even what we think of as kind of the signature products of the Steve Jobs era at Apple, is that they're willing to release products that everyone else thinks are kind of crazy at first, and that in retrospect look obvious. Like the iPod looks obvious now, but at the time it was an expensive device that seemed aimed at a market where people weren't really buying. People weren't buying music; they were stealing music. It didn't seem that people wanted to spend money on music devices, and it took a long time. It took 3 years for the iPad to become a successful iPod to become a successful mainstream gadget. But they were willing to take a chance on that, and I think in many ways the companies that we see don't do well in the Valley are ones who aren't willing to be misunderstood for a long time. So that's a sketch of these 4 companies and their aims. And what I'm saying is that each of their goals kind of naturally and inherently now run against one another. In order to succeed in their given markets, they've all now got to directly compete with the others. Some of them are somewhat friendly with the others. I mean, you can say that like 3 years ago, Apple and Google were friends, then they turned into like frenemies, and then they became outright competitors, and in some ways bitter competitors. And Google and Facebook are now really, there's no love lost between them. You know, a huge percentage, 30 or so percent of current Facebook employees are former Google employees. There's a huge war for talent between these companies. And you can see why. It's because their business aims depend on competing, crushing the other company. Google's profit margins in the advertising business can't survive if Facebook continues to rise in the way it has. It can't survive with Facebook's stated aims of, making tens, eventually nearly $100 billion a year in revenue from the ad business. Google's profit margins sort of won't survive that. Amazon can't survive without access to its customers and without making a storefront for all its goods on every device. And if competitors like Apple and Google become the main ways that we get tablets and phones, Amazon sort of sees its access to its customers being imperiled by these other competitors. And Apple can't survive if something like Android, something like a free operating system that leads to vastly lower priced devices, really takes off and becomes kind of the dominant, the Windows of our era. Apple's profit margins depend on people paying good money for good quality products. And even though Android has taken over the majority share of the smartphone market, the profit share in the industry is still, Apple is still leading that by a huge margin. And its shares can't survive if people start spending more on apps and on devices made by Google. So where does that leave us? It leaves users and businesses that depend on these products as kind of the battleground for these 4 companies. This is in some ways good because of this fight, you're going to get more innovation, more devices with more features to make your life better, and at lower prices. And depending on how some of these companies fare, you might even get these devices for free. So we'll get really great consumer products. We'll get kind of better services, better TV, better movies or better access to media. And more important things too. We'll get probably the way that these devices will infiltrate the healthcare industry, or it will change the way people do education or science. We could get really groundbreaking innovations and really change sort of society in the way, in the spread of these devices. On the other hand, you can see that Amazon, Apple, Facebook, and Google aren't going to kind of stop and trying to take over entire other industries kind of just at the drop of a hat. Amazon is now the leading player in the publishing industry. 4 years ago, I think people in the publishing industry saw Amazon as an ally, as a place where they could sell books, that was expanding the sale of books, and books at a profit margin, at a price that was giving the publishing industry profits. And now they see Amazon as kind of dictating the price, becoming their main main access, sort of intervening their access to their customers. And the same thing that happened with the music industry and Apple. And you can see these companies have ambitions to do that in other industries, in the payments industry, in the world of telecom. I mean, the main impediment at the moment to the main sort of headache for each of these companies is that they have to get to their customers through cable systems, through cellular data systems, through phone systems that they don't control. And you see each of them trying to create, they have lobbying efforts and they have technical efforts to try to create a new way to get to their customers. Google has been the most out front at this. They're launching a fiber network in sort of pilot cities around the country in order to spur competition, I think. They don't want to build sort of their own fiber network nationwide, but they want to spur others to build a fiber network to get broadband rates lower. And all of these 4 companies have also been big proponents of efforts to free up spectrum, to create sort of new ways, new faster wireless systems to get access to their customers. So the downside is that from this intense competition is that these companies are kind of inherently they're hungry and they're unpredictable, and they're going to come at various industries. And I think that the one thing that I hope that you would take away from this talk is that they're not going to stop. These 4 companies have this aim to massively disrupt every other industry, not just the tech industry. And I think that there's been this false sense of security in other businesses that these extremely innovative and for many other companies dangerous firms will sort of stay in the tech industry, and they're not. So if you run a business, if you participate in the economy, I think you should be wary of these firms, and also you should study their every move and try to counter them. So I'd be happy to take questions now on all of that, or anything you want.
So if you have a question, we have a couple of mics here.
I guess I'll quickly ask the first question. Good morning, and thank you for being here. I'm Lindsay Williamson of Aventus Systems, and I am curious. I've seen some different things trending on Twitter.
Oh, there you are.
Sorry, hi.
Yeah.
I've seen a bunch of different things trending on Twitter right now as I'm tweeting for the company, and I'm just wondering which of these 4 companies you currently think dominates, and which of these companies you think will ultimately dominate 10 years down the road.
Oh, so 10 years is just impossible to predict.
5 years?
Okay, let me answer your first question first. So I think if you look at the numbers and like the only thing people these companies should care about is the numbers. Apple clearly is the leader in terms of revenue, in terms of profit, in terms of kind of every other metric. Apple is dominant, but not in a way that would lead the others to kind of fail. It's not sort of this. First of all, this is not going to be, none of the places they're playing in are winner-take-all markets. I mean, Google could make a substantial amount of money in the mobile phone business, even from iPhones. Google gets a huge amount of mobile traffic from iPhones. So Apple may win the market for devices there, but Google can still win, more advertising. So I would say at the moment, Apple is dominant, but the fight is pretty intense. In 5 years, I would imagine that it's really difficult to see how Apple doesn't continue to kind of maintain huge revenues and profits from their slate of smartphones and tablets. But so I would say that its future for the next 5 years is pretty secure. Google and Facebook, I think, are a much more interesting fight, and for two reasons. Both because they're kind of battling very directly. That market, the market for advertising, is in some ways a winner-take-all market. It's not a huge amount of money they're fighting over compared to kind of the smartphone business, and it's not expanding at the rate of the smartphone business. Amazon's main fight is with the retail industry, and it seems like by any measure they're going to keep continuing there. I think the reason that I'm hesitant to predict a winner over the next 10 years is that it's possible, but even in some ways likely, that the player that will be dominant in 10 years in terms of money or market share is not even created yet. It's possible that there's a new Facebook-like idea out there that we don't know about that's going to sort of be the next big thing. I think that in some ways that's less possible now than it was 10 years ago because each of these companies is so dominant, but it's still, like, this is an industry where things are so dynamic that you can never count that out. So that's sort of where I would come out on that.
Thank you very much.
Hi, Farhad. Don Millard. Another area that Google is active in is in the cloud computing with business applications, migrating companies to the cloud, which of course competes with application companies like Microsoft. Didn't really talk that much about that. Do you see this as a big and growing area for Google, and do you see their success coming?
I think Google saw this as a big area. I mean, it saw the Office applications area as a big area, an area where they could undercut Microsoft's revenues and get a lot of customers 5 years ago, 4 years ago. I don't think they think it's their primary focus now. First, because it hasn't gone especially well. Microsoft's Office business is doing really well. Second, because we're seeing kind of new markets here that may be bigger than kind of selling Office suites. Providing all kinds of business applications on mobile devices might be a bigger market and kind of a more vibrant market than Office suites. And Google's priorities really have shifted to Facebook in the last 2 years. I mean, their compensation, like Larry Page issued a compensation memo that says that everyone who works at Google, their bonus is directly tied to how well the company does in the social networking space. So I think they see that as kind of their main fight, and everything else is kind of secondary, and including the effort to unseat Microsoft.
Thank you.
Hi, Kevin Abel with Able Solutions. Until your answer to the prior question, Microsoft hadn't been mentioned, or at least I didn't hear you mention Microsoft. I would guess, wild guess, that at least half the people, if not more, in this room use Microsoft technology every day in the office. Where does Microsoft fit with this whole picture over the next 5 years, in your opinion?
I would say they are a really, they're a really close kind of front runner to these four, which is an amazing thing to say. I mean, they were the dominant technology company and make a lot of money, but it's sort of their future depends on two products, and really it's kind of one product. It's Windows 8 and the Windows Phone, and they're both based on a new design, a new interface design, and kind of a brand new brand for Microsoft compared to the old Windows. The new Windows on phones and on computers and tablets will look different and function differently. And personally, and so I've been using Windows 8, and I've been using Windows phones, and personally I think that it's the operating systems of both, they're fantastic. They work really well, and I'm really surprised in some ways that Microsoft has made such a huge departure from their traditional PC business. They're gone kind of all in the mobile space, but they're late. They're years late, and they're years late to the smartphone business. They're a year late, and maybe even and perhaps too late to the tablet business. So it really kind of depends on if they can execute really well with their hardware partners, and if they can do the branding right, if they can do advertising right. It's just a lot of question marks around their new Windows effort. I'm rooting for them because I like the product, but I don't know if they can do it. I think we have time for one more question.
My question has to do with threats to the vision that you've articulated in the range of taxation, resistance to privacy, and the other one I was thinking about was, anyway, just general threats to the vision that you've articulated regarding those things.
Yeah, there are several. I think that the worry about privacy is probably not one of them, because if people were really scared about privacy, they wouldn't be using Facebook, but they are. I think people say they're worried about privacy, but like their actions suggest they aren't. I think that I would identify two main problems. One, the patents. They all have various kind of patent lawsuits, and it's unclear if they're going to resolve them in a way that's going to not kind of hurt the entire industry. Two, battery life. Battery life is not increasing at the pace of Moore's law. I mean, we want faster mobile devices, we want better mobile devices, but we might have to sacrifice the amount of time that those devices can stay alive. So unless someone comes up with a key to that, that might be the main hurdle there, the main technical hurdle. Okay?
I was also going to add concentration of power. Concentration of power within those four companies.
Wait, sorry, I didn't hear what you...
Resistance based upon the concentration of power within those four companies.
Yeah, so Google is running into some of this. I mean, they're running into, they have antitrust inquiries on every acquisition they make. And Apple is in a particularly nice spot here because they're not a monopoly in any market. They're not a monopoly in the tablet market and the phone market. Their market share is not the leading market share, but their profit share is. So in sort of the traditional way we think of monopolies, Apple isn't, but they're making just the most money in all of these areas. All right, thanks a lot. Oh, thank you.
Being with us today, really appreciate it. I was commenting at my table when you talked about one company trying to knock out the competition and getting bonuses. I just wanted to say that that's not allowed in the NFL, but I'm glad it's still allowed in the corporate world.